The farmhouse that watched us. Back in the crisp autumn of 2015, my girlfriend, Sailor, and I shared a peculiar passion for wandering through the relics of forgotten places. It wasn't the rush of danger that drew us. Rather, it was the haunting stillness, the whisper of bygone eras trapped within crumbling walls. Abandoned buildings held a magnetic pull, their decayed facades promising stories left untold. That October, our curiosity led us to a derelict farmhouse we'd often glimpsed from the highway during our weekend escapes from the city. It stood alone in a sea of barren fields, its skeletal frame stark against the gray sky, with peeling paint and shattered windows that seemed to stare back at us. We'd driven past it countless times, always wondering about its secrets. That day, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the frost-kissed grass, Sailor turned to me with a glint in her eye. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice tinged with mischief. I smirked, feeling the familiar thrill bubble up. "Let's check it out." We pulled the car off the road, parking it a safe distance away, and trekked through the overgrown path. Thorny brambles tugged at our clothes, and the air carried the faint scent of damp earth and decay. The farmhouse loomed larger with every step, its warped wooden exterior groaning softly in the wind, as if warning us to turn back. Sailor, ever the documentarian, snapped photos with her phone, capturing the eerie beauty of the place. The porch sagged under our weight, its boards creaking ominously as we approached the front door. It hung slightly ajar, inviting us into the darkness within. I glanced at Sailor, who nodded, her excitement tempered by a flicker of unease. With a gentle push, I opened the door, and it swung inward with a low, mournful groan that echoed through the empty interior. Inside, the air was thick with dust, motes dancing in the slivers of fading light that pierced the boarded-up windows. The remnants of a life long abandoned lay scattered across the floor. Shattered dishes, an overturned chair, a tarnished mirror reflecting only shadows. It was as if the occupants had fled in haste, leaving their possessions to rot. Sailor's footsteps were soft behind me, barely audible over the creaking floorboards. We moved through the downstairs rooms, each one a testament to neglect. Faded wallpaper peeled from the walls, stained with mildew, while old family portraits hung crookedly, their subjects' faces obscured by years of grime. The kitchen was a relic of another time, with a rusted refrigerator and an ancient stove standing like silent sentinels. A broken window above the sink let in a cold breeze, offering a view of the endless fields stretching into the twilight. "Can you imagine living here?" Sailor mused, her voice soft. I tried to picture it. A family gathered around the table, children's laughter echoing through the halls. But the image felt wrong, tainted by an inexplicable sadness that clung to the air. I shook it off, blaming my overactive imagination, and we pressed on. The staircase to the second floor was narrow and precarious, each step protesting under our weight. Upstairs, the decay was even more pronounced. Moldy mattresses sagged in forgotten bedrooms, and broken furniture lay in heaps. Sailor wandered into one room, her fingers brushing against a dust-covered vanity. "This place is giving me chills," she said, her nervous laugh betraying her bravado. I forced a chuckle, but a heavy stillness pressed against my chest, as if the house itself were holding its breath. We explored the final room, a small, claustrophobic space with a single cracked window. Sailor froze, her phone still raised from taking a photo. "Did you see that?" she whispered, pointing to the window. "I swear I saw a face when we were outside." I followed her gaze, but the window revealed only the darkening fields beyond. "Probably just a trick of the light," I said, though my voice lacked conviction. The unease was growing, a cold knot in my stomach that I couldn't ignore. We hurried downstairs as the sun sank below the horizon, casting the house in deep shadow. Back at home, we scrolled through Sailor's photos, laughing nervously to shake off the lingering dread. Then we saw it, a faint ghostly outline of a face in one of the upstairs windows, captured in a photo taken from the road. It was barely discernible, a pale smudge against the dusty glass, but it was there, watching us. Sailor's laughter faltered. "It's just a reflection, right?" she said, her voice trembling. I nodded, but neither of us believed it. The next morning, driven by a mix of curiosity and defiance, we returned to the farmhouse. The daylight made it seem less menacing, but the air still felt heavy, charged with an unseen presence. We climbed to the second floor, heading straight for the room with the mysterious window. It was empty, as expected, but Sailor gasped, grabbing my arm. "Look," she said, pointing to the floor. There, in the thick layer of dust, was a single set of fresh footprints leading to the window and back toward the door. They hadn't been there the day before. We stood frozen, staring at the tracks. The air grew colder, and a faint creak echoed from the hallway behind us, like someone shifting their weight on the floorboards. We turned, but the corridor was empty. "We need to go," Sailor whispered, her voice barely audible. I nodded, my heart pounding as we hurried down the stairs. As we reached the front door, I swore I heard a soft whisper, too faint to make out, but chillingly clear. We didn't look back as we sprinted to the car, slamming the door shut and peeling away from the farmhouse. That night, the memory of the footprints and the face in the window haunted me. Sometimes when I drive past that stretch of road, I catch a glimpse of the farmhouse in the distance, its dark windows staring like empty eyes. I swear I see that pale face again, watching from afar. Whether it was a trick of the mind or something truly sinister, one thing's certain: we weren't alone in that house. I worked as a nurse in a small-town hospital, a cozy place where familiar faces filled the halls, patients, doctors, and staff alike. It had a warm community feel, but there was one part of the building that cast a shadow over its charm. The top floor, where the old psychiatric ward lay abandoned. Locked away for years, it was a place steeped in local legend, whispered about in hushed tones by those who'd been around long enough to know its history. Stories of flickering lights, unexplained cold spots, and disembodied whispers circulated among the staff, dismissed as folklore by most. But on a quiet Friday night, with the hospital unusually calm, my curiosity got the better of me. The janitor had mentioned a loose lock on the ward's door, how it kept coming undone no matter how many times he secured it. With the patients asleep and the night shift dragging, I decided it was time to see for myself. Armed with a flashlight, I climbed the stairs to the top floor, each step echoing in the stillness. The hallway stretched out before me, dim and foreboding, with a crooked sign on the ward's door reading, "Ward closed." My heart thudded as I approached, the air growing heavier with every step. I twisted the doorknob, expecting resistance, but it gave way easily, swinging open with a low creak. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a corridor lined with doors, their paint chipped and peeling. The air was thick with the scent of mold and stale antiseptic, and faded posters about hope and recovery clung to the walls, their messages hollow in the desolate space. I stepped inside, my footsteps unnaturally loud in the silence, and began exploring the rooms. Each room was a frozen moment in time. Unmade beds with yellowed sheets, dust-covered furniture, and forgotten personal items. A pair of worn slippers, a tattered robe, a stuffed bear missing one eye, lay scattered about. The deeper I went, the stronger the sense of unease grew, like I was trespassing in a place that didn't want me there. At the end of the hall stood a reinforced door marked Ward A, its surface marred by deep scratches, as if someone had clawed at it in desperation. I traced the grooves with my fingers, wondering who had made them and why. Then I heard it. A faint tapping, like raindrops on glass coming from somewhere down the hall. I froze, my flashlight beam darting across the walls. The sound grew louder, more insistent, echoing through the corridor. I followed it, my heart pounding until I reached a door where the tapping stopped, replaced by a soft scratching, like fingernails dragging across wood. I pressed my ear to the door, and the sound intensified, sending a chill down my spine. I backed away, scanning the hallway, but it was empty. As I turned to leave, a whisper cut through the silence. "Help me." It was faint, barely audible, but unmistakable. My blood ran cold. I strained to listen, and the voice came again, more desperate. "Please help me." It seemed to come from the reinforced door at the end of the hall. I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity, and approached the door. The air grew colder, the silence heavier. I pressed my ear against the wood, and the whisper returned. Closer now, as if someone were standing just on the other side. I grabbed the handle, my hands trembling, but the door was locked tight. As I struggled with it, a soft, childlike laugh echoed down the hallway, mingling with the desperate pleas. I spun around, my flashlight shaking, but the corridor was empty. The laughter grew louder, closer, until it felt like it was right beside me. Panic took over, and I ran, my footsteps echoing as I raced back to the stairwell. Even as I burst through the door and stumbled down the stairs, the laughter followed, faint but relentless. I never returned to the ward. When I finally told the older nurses about my experience, they exchanged knowing glances. Helen, a quiet veteran of the hospital, leaned in. "You heard her, didn't you?" she asked. "Her," I replied, a chill settling over me. She told me about a young woman who had been confined to room 306 decades ago, a patient who never left the ward alive. "Some say she's still there," Helen said, tapping, crying out, hoping someone will listen. Marcy, another nurse, added that others had heard the same things. Footsteps, whispers, lights flickering in empty rooms. From that night on, the hospital felt different. Every creak, every draft carried a new weight. I avoided the top floor, but sometimes, during quiet shifts, I'd pause by the stairwell, feeling an inexplicable pull, as if something wanted me to return, to listen. The ward's secrets lingered, a reminder that some echoes never fade. My girlfriend Mia and I were drawn to the forgotten corners of the world, places where time seemed to stand still. When we heard about an abandoned mansion on the edge of town, its history shrouded in rumors of tragedy, we couldn't resist. Some said a fire had driven the owners out. Others whispered of darker events. A murder, perhaps, or something even more sinister. Mia's family had known about the place for years, but no one had dared to explore it. That was all the invitation we needed. We arrived at dusk, the mansion's stone walls tangled with ivy, its broken windows glinting in the fading light. Mia parked the car at the end of the long, winding driveway, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. "You sure about this?" she asked, grabbing her camera. We didn't come all this way to back out now, I replied, forcing a grin. She laughed, but it was shaky, and we made our way to the front door, which hung slightly open, its wood warped by years of neglect. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of mildew and decay. Mia's flashlight swept across the foyer, illuminating peeling wallpaper and a grand staircase cloaked in dust. No one's been here in forever, she murmured, snapping photos. I tried to imagine the mansion in its prime, music filling the halls, elegant guests mingling. But the silence was oppressive, broken only by the creak of our footsteps. We explored room after room, each one more decayed than the last. Faded portraits of stern-faced aristocrats lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow us. In the ballroom, a massive space with a vaulted ceiling and grimy windows, we found a grand piano, its once polished surface dulled by time. Mia approached it cautiously, running her fingers along the yellowed keys. "This must be the famous piano," she whispered, referencing the local legends. "Think it still plays?" I teased, pressing a key. A single hollow note rang out, echoing through the room and sending a shiver down my spine. Mia's gaze fixed on the piano, her face paling. "Did you do that?" she asked, pointing to a small childlike handprint in the dust on the keys. "No," I said, my voice tight. "It's probably just old dust." But the print was too clear, too fresh. We backed away, the air growing heavier. As we turned to leave, a deep, resonant note sounded from the piano, unprompted, its echo lingering in the silence. Mia grabbed my arm. "You're not messing with me, are you?" I shook my head, my heart racing. We moved toward the door, but Mia stopped, her flashlight fixed on the far end of the room. "I saw someone," she whispered, her voice trembling. "By the door." I squinted into the darkness, but there was nothing. Just shadows. "Let's go," I said, steering her toward the exit. As we stepped into the hallway, I felt it. A prickling sensation, like eyes boring into my back. I glanced over my shoulder and froze. For a split second, I saw a tall, thin figure by the piano, its silhouette barely discernible in the gloom. We hurried through the mansion, the hallways seeming darker, more oppressive. Every step echoed, and the air grew colder. "Was this a mistake?" Mia asked, her voice small. I didn't answer, focused on reaching the foyer. As we crossed the threshold to the porch, a soft whisper echoed from deep within the house, too faint to decipher but chillingly clear. We ran to the car, locking the doors as Mia started the engine. "What was that?" she whispered, her hands shaking. I had no answer. We never returned to the mansion. The memory of that piano note, the handprint, and the fleeting figure lingered, haunting my quiet moments. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I swear I hear that note again, soft and distant, calling me back to a place I'll never revisit. I'd driven past the old mansion on the outskirts of town countless times, its decaying grandeur peeking through gnarled trees and a rusted gate. It was a mystery, a place that seemed to exist outside of time, with no records of its owners or history online. My friend Matt, always up for a challenge, agreed to explore it with me one rainy Friday night. We weren't looking to cause trouble, just to glimpse the past trapped within its walls. The gate creaked mournfully as we pushed it open, startling a flock of crows into the stormy sky. The mansion loomed ahead, its windows dark and uninviting. We reached the front door, its heavy wood scarred by time, and Matt pushed it open, revealing a foyer cloaked in dust. The air was thick, carrying the scent of decay, and sheets draped over furniture gave the place a ghostly aura. We explored the grand parlor, where a crystal chandelier hung precariously, its jewels dulled by grime. In the dining room, an ornate table stood surrounded by chairs, as if waiting for guests who would never arrive. The silence was oppressive, broken only by our footsteps. As we moved deeper into the house, I felt a growing unease, like we were being watched. In a dimly lit room, my flashlight caught a glimpse of something. A figure in a flowing white dress, standing motionless. "Matt, do you see that?" I whispered. He nodded, his eyes wide. The figure's posture was unnatural, rigid, and for a moment I thought it might be a mannequin. But as we stepped closer, it vanished, slipping around a corner. We followed, but the room was empty, the air colder than before. A soft giggle echoed through the hallway, childlike and eerie. "Hello?" Matt called, his voice unsteady. Silence answered. We moved to a sweeping staircase, its wood creaking underfoot. At the top, a long hallway stretched before us, lined with slightly ajar doors. One door, at the far end, was closed, marked with faded letters spelling nursery. Matt pushed it open, revealing a rocking chair by the window and fresh footprints in the dust, leading from the chair to the door. My stomach dropped. "We need to leave," I said, my voice barely a whisper. As we turned, I saw it, a figure in white, her face hidden by dark hair standing in the doorway. She took a step forward and we ran, stumbling down the stairs and out the front door. We didn't stop until we reached the gate, the rain soaking us as we fled to the car. On the drive home, we barely spoke. The mansion had felt alive, its presence lingering like a storm on the horizon. The figure, the giggle, the footprints, they stayed with me, vivid and unsettling. We'd gone looking for a thrill, but we'd found something else, something that made it clear we weren't welcome. Some places are abandoned for a reason, and some secrets are better left undisturbed.